아니 참말랑 하루 들레스라 아니 따따나가 조디초 사지 주좀마다 근데 디질라네 가서 가서 좋아지라 딜랑서 가는 되죠 아니 디질랑서 디초 람존나서라
So good morning everyone, and we'll start the session with a prayer, the refuge prayer and the four immeasurables prayer. And after the prayers, we will continue to address the sharings that we had yesterday. And after that, we will go on to explore the actual root text of the three principal aspects of the path. So page number 6 in the prayer book.
상제 쉐단 소제 전나라에 상제 바드 다니 제스지 나예 진소 제베 소남제 돌아 변제 상제 두바레쇼 상제 쉐단 소제 전나라에 상제 바드 다니 제스지 나예 진소 제베 소남제 돌아 변제 상제 두바레쇼 상제 처다 초제 전나라에 상제 바드 다니 제스지 나예 진소 제베 소남제 돌아 변제 상제 두바레쇼 심젠 당제 대화다 대외 주단 덴바라 주지 등에다 등에게 주단 대화지 등에 메베 대화 당바 다이면대와 주지 예리야 차다 닌다 제외 다냐 첨보라이 네버주지 심젠 당제 대화다 대외 주단 덴바주지 등에다 등에게 주단 대화지 등에 메베 대화 당바 다이면대와 주지 예리야 차다 닌다 제외 다냐 첨보라이 네버주지 심장 당제 대화다 대외 주단 덴바주지 등에다 등에게 주단 대화지 등에 메베 대화다 면대화지 예리야 차다 닌다 제외 다냐 첨보라이 네버주지 아니 넘버 3 그저 되어 임베스라
So I hope all of you are keeping well.
나시베서다
The weather is very hot.
대체 아니 다 딱하자면서 딜돌아 가서 딜라 가르라스는 남제미다 가서 미치기 미시버디 가르선 달리에네 그 칼라나라나 아니 남두이다 남남세 진다 마다오게 아니 희제 검당도라 희제 냠내 제당도 치드 거래 인수다 라 다드네 아니 희제래 가내지고라나 직 심제로 가린다 직 심제 집하게 동에게 나대와 텔레 아니 딜레 점도 로텔 안간다 희제라라
Yes. So then as we will now continue to address the sharings yesterday, then one of us talked about how they want to inculcate the practice of compassion in their daily lives. So before we begin to inculcate such a practice in our lives, it is important first to understand what exactly do we mean by compassion. And now from the Buddhist perspective, compassion is understood in this manner. Aimed at someone who is in suffering, then you develop a wish within yourself to free them from suffering. So this is what we need to understand when we say that we want to practice compassion.
지다 동해로 이제 심지 얘기 때 안에 그 동해 지가 통화이나 얘기 때 가서 희지체 근데 동해디랑을 원은 연주제로 리더 드니슬라지 자자 제가 가서 거기 심지 가리나 동해기 나대어디 소소나 세지바 센나 샤톤 콜라 동해나 갈 드니 영화이나 가지칼이라 딘데지기 쌈 따비고 아니 거기 로봇 제투이나 템보시라 다가지 양 점점하는 지된 취지로다 지미기 갈 때라 당겨라 삼야로다 야 지글람도 루소기 치워서니 많이 봐 란디네 베 칼로다 니지 셀게어라 소소베도 베 샤차오 어때지 지어라 치다가도 니지려오라
So this is very important to understand. When we say that we want to practice compassion, we have to ensure that that such a compassion is not tainted by selfish concerns, or is not tainted by worldly concerns of name, fame, and personal gain, and so forth. Because in the cultivation of a spiritual practice, compassion means that it is aimed towards someone who is in suffering, and then you develop the wish within yourself to free them from such suffering. Now, when we say that this is what we mean by compassion, then does it mean that compassion has to be always aimed towards someone else? And what about yourself? So from the Buddhist perspective, we say that aim towards others in suffering, then you develop compassion. But aim towards the suffering that you yourself are going through, then you develop what we call renunciation, a wish to be free from samsaric suffering. And this is very important to understand in the cultivation of a spiritual practice.
담밍가와디 칼라들라나라 미치나 다칼라 셈바데 시데 파페 왜 치더라 다들 오늘에 다가서 지단기 밀 시데 파페 고월 대간서 직 젠지 만라 상지 만라 제지 만라네 시데 파페 리고라 시데 파페 우세기 고도든 간서 알아서 자오라 근데 인자디가라 가서 가서 일로디베 상론다 뭐도 쿠다 쇼긴네 군다부터 가서 장가스는 찍고 두고마 니마치기 나로 근데 주주지기 나로라 가서 가르가서 사는 타요나 안저 커버르다 근데 인사 아니 응줄로 간 템파디가라 아니 주부디 대가라 주데나 아니 시데 파지 레어 그래요 라 제가 가서 류디 생비 요포도 소셔이나 아니 셈다 텐조 거라 가리나라 근데 인디가 아니 류디게 마초네 아니 지 칼로다 같이 강이 튀기도 라 직차기 차오에도 대변감다 차오엔다 직 딱딱다 그 바기 생고 삼만나시 류기 무초디가라 아니 양가 바페우도 메바 차려다 근데 인사 난두가라 저기 직 텐주 삼주이네 수수수수 세가도 그chen 먼저 단다 패셔널로 시오에는 먼저 인디래요 답변은 아주 시제 라 템바 타바다 시제 잘하다 근데 아니 신에게 수수기 아니 로드 카드긴 따지친 라 쇼 드러치나 스까 베드만 냠추만 로드마 tum 나트도네야 야팡 토르다야 근데 이거 저기 곰 자야데 베케쳐다
So then, moving on, one of us talked about how they have a wish to cultivate peace and calm in their lives. So this is an experience that all of us have, especially in this day and age, wherein even though we do desire a sense of calm, a sense of peace in our lives, then when we look at the manner in which our minds function, then we realize that our minds are overwhelmed by an endless train of thoughts and emotions. And if we do not exercise a sense of control over this endless train of thoughts and emotions, then sooner or later, then we become distracted, we become led astray, and then at one point we are mindlessly running after these thoughts and emotions. And as such, our body almost becomes a slave to these mindless thoughts and mindless thoughts and these different emotions that arise within our mind streams. So when we do realize that, then we also need to realize that even though we do desire peace and calm, then we ourselves kind of close the door which could lead us to this peace and calm that we so desire. So in that, it is important to understand that if we keep running after these kind of discursive thoughts and emotions, then it leads to a place of anxiety, agitation in the mind. So as such, we need to pay attention and observe the mind in our daily lives. And when we look at it, then we begin to realize that in the duration of a day, or even in the duration of an hour, we have like countless thoughts which pop up in our minds. Now, if we keep running after these thoughts and give in to these thoughts all the time, then indeed we cannot hope to achieve a sense of peace and calm. Now, we need to come to a place wherein we are able to kind of regulate and exercise a sense of control over these incessant thoughts and emotions. So from the Buddhist perspectives, we place a lot of importance on meditation as a way to regulate our thoughts, our thought patterns, and our emotional patterns. So in the practice of meditation, we talk about the importance of cultivating qualities of the mind, such as mindfulness, vigilance, and so forth. So mindfulness is, we use this analogy, mindfulness is likened to a rope which places the mind on an object of focus, and then vigilance is like a spy which checks to see if mindfulness stays on the object of meditation. So it's through these kind of meditative practices that one can come to a place wherein you are able to overcome the onslaught of these discursive thoughts and emotions. Yes.
이 단다 템바다 가서 시사스라 이 타바이 쓰스메 잘하는 로사라 라 근데 이네 땅아서 샘조도 마시어디 카네레네나 디리기도 하는 가서 대감나야다 아니 너바 마침이죠 근데 당도 텔레고 텔레가이나 텔레마죠 근데 수수 천지 마지야 디레지네 가서 샘바디 투도야죠 베나 응우사니네 잘레 똥똥네 트트는 보면 거야도 내가 전에 디사와다 샘바지죠 다 가리네 찍기 소소기 가르치오네 베도 코라 찍기 지제메 찍네 마 무트는 쇼치 지오네야 셈발라 딜링임 나칼로 데지 퍼센트지 마라디가라네 야 차이치기다 감다라한테 차대다.
So the reason that we experience a lot of anxiety and agitation as a consequence of being overwhelmed by these discursive thoughts and emotion is indeed one that we give into these kind of thoughts and emotions. And now another particularly important factor that we need to understand is that unless and until we develop a sense of contentment with regards to something that we pursue, be it material, spiritual, financial, anything, then unless and until we develop a sense of contentment, then this cycle of kind of anxiety, agitation will continue to perpetuate. Because think about it in this manner, unless and until we have a sense of contentment, then as we kind of become overwhelmed by these incessant, unstoppable thoughts and thoughts, then we need to understand why exactly are these thoughts unstoppable. Because we do not have a sense of contentment. We kind of want to pursue more. We kind of want to give in to sensory pleasures more all the time. So as such, these become incessant, unstoppable. And then we become overwhelmed at one point, and in the process, we become agitated and anxious.
그는 남자 주는 가라들 sometimes 백해셔보라. 그는 가서 찍나 쉬어야 되길 수수가 샘디 가도도 따고라. 근데 인디가 아니 수수수 상담난데 이 간대지 지도라. 천재 간대지 지고도 딜레베 sometimes 그는 가서 니마식을 찍 샘바 쇼게 알아오는 샘바 흘려도 라 파페보로 안지 내가 망부셔다메 아니 소소 찍기 칼로 찍기 자시셔다메 와이나 샘바 흘려도 차이다. 디니가 안 그냥 탭실 로이나 딱빠다 코디니. 라 셈바라 냐퉁이 레가지 체와이나 따따따단 디디니도 아니 직지전이나 그 지지저이나 따따따다 마투에도 라 아니 미질리 계시시나야 셈발레레디가라 파기 밀레 답시 포에 계시입니다 라 방문에 알아오는 직 셈바 남도 담을 지텐 아니 직 나라데나 나미라 계시나 지게 직주부셔대로 실로로도나 밀 남주두자 태야다 직주부셔야로 레가지 체나야 직 따따따다 치모도에 라도 노트만 붙이대로 또삼만 가서는 가서 샘 시대 밥에 매발 땐 죽어라 근데 이제 샘 딜흘려 샤야 돼 뺏게 전부다
So now, as we say that we want to experience a sense of calm and peace in our daily lives, it is important to understand what exactly is the purpose of having a sense of peace and calm in our daily lives first. And for that, we need to be able to relate this to our own experiences, the manner in which we live our lives, and how a sense of peace and calm helps us to live our lives more mindfully. So from the Buddhist perspective, the task of a practitioner is to always observe one's own mind, what goes on to it and how it is affected, and how what arises in the mind affects our actions, our speech, and so forth. So then, think about it in this manner. When you wake up first thing in the morning and if you do not have any plans, immediate plans, and then you have just immediately woken up at that point and look at your mind at that moment. The mind at that point is relatively at ease, is relatively at peace, and it is calm. So at that moment, when you have such a sense of calm, then look at the manner in which, when the mind has such a sense of calm and peace, the manner in which it approaches a simple task such as reading a book, or even maybe simple tasks such as talking to someone else, or then even think about how if one has to kind of keep their accounts, then if one approaches it with a sense of calm and peace, then the accounts naturally are kept in order. So when we look at the manner in which, when we have a sense of peace and calm in our mind, and the manner in which we approach these tasks, then we realize the importance and the purpose of having a sense, cultivating a sense of peace and calm in the mind.
Pena pesando shana che pena chana la phi nyanyu mai gir samdra pena shugin hawa la da susuchi nami gi chi de nare pugu tanda inare ta chi lega ndam ta chi mi ji lung la ni ra tinde shewena ima kanza lega dites chi tunde ma the ro ani mi ji tu ne mi de namju ta mi shamba ji lung na sa na shamba thu de ga chi do ya de wo mi ju namju ta nam sa chi ji do ni do ulu tsu bu shwe do den dam de da che da shoge ya lang de ne semba pa phe bo chi ne misul ta wa ne shulu kha do ne mi sama ge ma chi do so ge ye de re ra so ge nam do de shu che ta jing ma je tha don den se ji ge lo xian wan do sa de ga pa ge yu xian ba de thon na ga zo na ma ra ji thon de ra so ji wu ji wu ne pa ge de mi de zhe thon de ga ya ye dong wa thon de ra ge ji xin ne ji ge si ya bo ten do den de le da che sa di nyam nyu ga la den de ji 하 고에는 아니 산이나니 디쇼라 만로야진 스카야이 다 갈래갈래 아니 신네 미마진 가서 생디 베드 코라 칼로 남도 sama pang thueda tindi kale khabra kale susu lol tagi chen ani didora.
So now, as opposed to this, now I am recounting this from my own personal experience. So now, as opposed to this, if our minds are agitated and our minds are disturbed, then any kind of tasks that we approach, we are not able to effectively see it through. We do not see the desired results that we hope to see. And similarly, even with the small interactions that we have with others, then the state of the mind that we are in affects that interaction. So, for example, if our minds are disturbed, then we are easily irritable in our interactions with others, and when we look at the slightest change of expression in someone's faces, then we become agitated ourselves. So this is the manner in which the state of our mind affects the interactions, our actions, our speech, and so forth. So with this kind of understanding, it is important to kind of relate this to our own daily lives and to see how it affects, how the state of our mind affects our interactions and so forth, and our experiences. So now, when we compare these two, we begin to realize that indeed, when we do have these flux of discursive thoughts and emotions in our minds, now if we let ourselves become affected by these discursive thoughts and emotions, then we begin to project these disturbed aspects onto situations, onto our interactions. Then similarly, if we ourselves are calm, we ourselves are at peace, then similarly we approach our interactions and our experiences in a different way. Yes. So are you able to follow along with the discussion so far? You are able to kind of pick something from this that you can relate to?
단지 칼라는 그 자유방고야 지글라다. 다 자유방은 내가 유도 커커래. 가서 맞아 내감디 들어다. 갈라 디고 아니 체메 버시라. 단지 리디가 칼라다 내가 마친 로지라. 다 지당 가서 자유방을 지당 차사 유들다 가서 투메인 비주 드라탈라 라야 저르다. 당가서 고코 수레유신데 단도에 만보지 고다. 란 내감로 Teo ko da tenzuya tende isano maantara yani yasemna kang tido ra deba masime kang ra pena jawi na ton na tutu na bom ani khashi khamba be yakadesa gonga desa mambuji goda chala yana chi na mandi tele ma go tinde mambuji goda ya ngazu tigi de sharo lo da tigi chashin tele chapa ichin tele raya thapsi tang digala yasemla mashiwa chekda ra so kai ba de chushi che de kecham ra.
So then, moving on, one of us talked about how they feel a need to abandon some things that they are particularly attached to. So herein, when we are talking about an emotion such as attachment, then in Buddhist, from the Buddhist perspective, we begin to analyze the object of our desire or attachment, and how that particular emotion of attachment or desire affects the manner in which we view the object of our desire. So in this, from the Buddhist perspective, it is clear that when we are consumed by a sense of desire, then we begin to kind of exaggerate the appealing qualities of the object of our desire. So this is the function of the emotion of attachment, and this is particularly important to understand. And now in this day and age, when we say that we want to kind of become less attached to things, it is important to make a distinction between needs and wants. And needs are essential. We need to fulfill these needs to be able to sustain ourselves in all ways. Now wants come from a place of desire and attachment. So unless and until we cultivate a sense of contentment with regards to the wants that we have in our lives, then there is no way in which we will come to experience a sense of satisfaction, because attachment, desire, and so forth operates in this manner. We are never content with what we have. If we have one, we need two. If we have two, we need 10. If we have 10, we need 100. And then similarly, for example, some people have not just one house. They have 2-3 houses, and they are not even content with these houses. They need a summer house, a vacation house, and so forth. So this is the manner in which attachment operates. So it is very important to kind of make a distinction clearly between our needs and our wants, and then to begin to then come to a place wherein we can begin to manage our desires better.
먼저 배배기 시당자 미기 발레레네 다 순제 파주도 치도 심이도 그 도와잖아 딜을 하고 거시가 쟁입니다 미디기 소소 소는 당연히 해봐요네 단도 야 싸야고 로주마주마네 마페지다 저르면서 쇼산다라.
So in Tibetan we have a particular saying wherein we say that human beings are the flat-backed animals. Whereas when you look at all the other animals, they have humps, their backs are not really flat. So it's to kind of highlight the point that as we have flat backs, then we are never really content with what we have. We always kind of think about the future, and then we kind of begin to develop attachment towards things that we want to procure in the future, things that we want in the future, as opposed to animals.
다 된다. 미지 칼라나 지리라 어디 칼라나 미 미스나로 딘주도 고들라더라 오늘 딘주도 고에 지단 패키지 뭐 딘주를 다 소소소소 남들 나자제 된대치는 디임도 된대치는 디 빨라 아주 레니지 비시를 해주라 디 소소기 어디 전에 야보도 밀라 팬도 지라나 팬도 디 전에 누구도 야보면들 디 소소소소래 딘주가 아니 디 하코비 지라 아니 라네 다가라 따야 패키지 뭐다 지단 가족이야 딘주 찍네 소소소소 찍 라마다 된대잖아요 아주 켈렌지요라 Theo kuti kelenji tigal tata kuti dinzu dora. Tachi pen laptaina gombaina topakana kaina dinzu yora. Notigara tata do chikche. Taine misina ngazo ene chi chunsen chi goe pekesham. Kaza ngazo lodi dendegi chunsen mebaina be lo tense samachena. Ani midi peru nyombaro chajora. 소소소 내년지 비시레비 남제 페이지 땅네 아니 제 고야 카르도 무고야 카르도 라 제나 아니 펜도 카르도 뒷답이고네 아니 딜레가 카르인 주와이나 아니 페이지 강인 유인 차이라.
So then one of us talked about the importance that they find in developing discipline in their lives and how they wish to develop such discipline in their lives. Now it is indeed true that discipline is very important in our lives. Now, we need to understand that discipline needs to come from a place of discernment, a discernment which is informed by a sense of wisdom. Wisdom which is able to differentiate between what to adopt and what to abandon, what to cultivate and what to overcome. Simply, what to do and what not to do. And so if our sense of discipline in our personal lives come from this sense of discernment informed by wisdom, then we do not really need to kind of enforce it upon ourselves all the time. We are discerning enough, we are wise enough to stay disciplined at all times. So before we think about kind of pushing ourselves through a regimental sense of discipline, it is important to understand that true discipline comes from a sense of personal discernment. And now, with regards to spiritual practice, from the Buddhist perspective, discipline is understood in the context of ethical conduct. Ethical conduct in the sense that if you are an ordained person, you begin to take vows from your spiritual teacher that you will not engage in these negative actions at all. So through that, you begin to develop a sense of ethical code of conduct, which is almost equal to the personal sense of discipline that we are talking about at this point. Now, the importance of discipline is understood when we begin to realize that we indeed need some sense of regulation, some sense of management of the things that arises within our minds. If we do not regulate our thoughts, our emotions, then if we mindlessly run after these thoughts and emotions at all times, then we are bound to suffer at one point. So this is the need of true discipline, the manner in which we regulate, manage our thoughts and emotions.
다 지기 칼라는 아니 sempa 페부도 지버시라 sempa 버시하고 왔다 아니 동반이다 아니 상생로 소반냐네 지당 시에 지다 거리 인다더라 다디 다 sempa 페부도 지버지다 인이라 더사지도 다 동반이를 디가 가서 카바 동바라시네 디네 아니 치카 메삼 데와삼 지부 마이게 라 근데진 삼마 동반이 빼 자체만 삼다이라 전자도 냐마인데 두죠 미지기 떠니 검들라 아니 떠니 간데 화라라 들라데죠 tadi kyodo la ina ta tongba ni le di khande la na nganzo di le do to timu gu nyembo ani tende le da tende la u di ga la di la pha pe jacham ko ya du depende timu mari pa nyembo de ani kala na tende de ya la choni la so pa ta tende ba thashi tha ga u di ga la ani chö tha ji chik chi la ma de pa ani rangon tu ba da rashi tu ba tende gi tu ba chi me ba ha ko de ha ko di ga la ani chik 파길래 덴버 두베기 추 두자에 메바지더라 타라시기다 랑은 두베기 덴데기 추 메바 아니 덴데기 소소가서 단제데 덴젠지로 디기 미디 참아바 시투에 라 덴데기 로지 아니 가서 라지르 체토에는 페지 tomani 건다는데 다 넣어지 콤바 tom바라지는 곰지제 말리디 너자셔다 콘로가지 삼치바이나 음비마사 제서디 tom바니레디 페 띵서 부투시라
So then, moving on, one of us talked about how they want to kind of practically, how they wanted to know how they can practically imbibe the wisdom of emptiness as well as the awakening mind of bodhicitta in their daily lives. Now, when we are talking about the wisdom of emptiness, when we are talking about emptiness, many people kind of misunderstand emptiness. They kind of equate it with it being something like an empty house sometimes, that there is nothing, so it is empty. So that's the manner in which they understand emptiness. This is a very, very wrong understanding of emptiness. Now, if we want to understand emptiness, try to understand in the scriptures it is very clear that when we are talking about ignorance, then the antidote that is prescribed to overcome ignorance is dependent origination or dependent arising. So dependent arising or dependent origination refers to the fact or the reality that all things are interdependent. All things are dependent on causes and conditions. All things come to be dependent by depending on causes and conditions. So if the Buddhist text stresses the importance of dependent origination or dependent arising as an antidote to ignorance, what does it exactly mean? So we need to kind of explore this. If all things are interdependent, all things are dependent on causes and conditions, then nothing really exists on its own. Nothing exists. Nothing exists without depending on causes and conditions. So herein we have a way to understand what emptiness really means now. So if things depend on causes and conditions and nothing exists without depending on causes and conditions, so the emptiness herein that is talked about is the lack of inherent existence, the lack of things existing on its own. So that kind of reality that we kind of perceive that things have their own inherent existence, that is empty. That things do not have such an inherent existence. So we relate this with ourselves to the manner in which we conceive a self, the thing that we call I, which we conceive to be something solid, absolute, and then we understand that this self does not have some inherent existence. And similarly, with regards to outer objects, then the manner in which we conceive things to have absolute existence, we begin to understand that they do not arise or exist on their own. They come to be on the basis of causes and conditions coming together.
Kisi tombani neludi abuji towa ina ra ani jinga tola mato pada loba topa tindi ulo dio mara kala ngoi ni tu yule kare yobadi takta totu ra danze da denzing golndeo mai pa pegi yule chimachi shen dia towa ina ani jige ngatu kangi mambu de mato pada loba topa le wara tuzu samasa bu towa ina ani dungi mambu ji go kanda dungi tsawani pang thuero tindi lido ti chita lela bude marira ine chana tombani she de ba yule digala ta digala tombani sin de ko ngadu ni lamsan lela bu she thuete mare ine ya ta khwar tan chi chana khashila ma charo korasan ta yire kisi mewa ina ta tinde chila shawo ra.
So then I must admit that when we are talking about emptiness, then discussions on and emptiness tend to become difficult after a certain point. It is not something that is easily understandable at the first go itself. Now, with that being said, we still need to understand the importance of understanding emptiness or realizing emptiness. So the purpose of understanding emptiness is the reality of things. We do not perceive or understand reality as it is. We have a misconception of reality, and as such, all of our suffering springs from that misconception of reality. So if we understand emptiness, the reality of things, the fact that things do not have inherent existence or inherent essential existence, then we overcome our misconceptions of reality. and then we are able to understand reality as it is. So as such, we overcome our suffering in this manner. So this is the purpose or the importance of understanding emptiness or realizing emptiness.
다 리야 코 카르라드스나 아니 수수이 샘디 두부 두제로지 소이두라더라. 대 마요이지 다 샘디 두부 두제로 소이들다 비제 샘디 대마타네라. 아니 소 가서가 티도지라. 안 두부 두제에서 먼저 지게 너 먹어야서 티고라 두부 두제 거고 따는데 라. 된대로지 살리면서 상고 다 간다. 땡기는 것도 더 차와나시 제가 류디 생위 요부를 만들어야 돼 백해점라. 생비 당보지 상외는 저 가르치고 직상고라 딜라니 쳇데 덴바지레다 던데 덴바지레다 지라나 펜바다 젠라 펜바지레다 제바체 백해 전부다 생 산수 삼문한테 제는 리기입니다 당보지 대응으로 되나 아니 다다 풀을 팽이다 틸을 팽이다 gel을 팽이다 라를 팽이다 근데 이 팽이 가지는 제 산수가 같이 지기는 제디나 아니 류래 강이 튀고다 제가 근데 이리 그 베지 셈바디 스타스도 두부 두자로 소기두라디가 텐스 상마 제디나 라 아니 데스 페이지 zupoda tanzolama kangi tiada ani super susu senla maga danaj thongmen rosangdra ti mayuela ani susuge tenju dila shinju chine ra sede nembare dore mindan chi rimba ni ba doji kalma shinju china ani peji tende kangi tigin do khamares.
So then moving on, one of us talked about how they get the feeling that their mind have become a sort of a bad friend. So I need to understand how exactly our mind becomes a bad friend. Now, the way that I understand it is that in the same manner that when we are in the company of bad friends, then we are led astray to places where we shouldn't be. So similarly, if we feel that our minds have become a bad friend, then it is the fact that due to the discursive thoughts and emotions that arises within the mind, then we give in to these discursive thoughts and emotions, and then we kind of let ourselves go in following these discursive thoughts and emotions. And then sooner or later, we begin to suffer, and as such, we begin to blame our own minds that it led us astray, wherein it should be the case that it is the nature of the mind to have these discursive thoughts and emotions, but it is our responsibility to kind of see whether it makes sense to follow these thoughts and emotions in our actions. And so as such, rather than, I think it comes from a place like this, wherein we say that, oh, I feel like doing something because this thought came up in my mind. Or sometimes we hear people saying, oh, I hear my mind telling me this, so I just do this. This is very silly. If we kind of keep following this all the time, then sooner or later we get this kind of feeling that our minds have become a bad friend. Whereas it should be the case that we need to understand that many different thoughts and emotions can arise in the mind, but it should not be the case that we follow these thoughts and emotions mindlessly, that there should be a process of contemplation first to see if it is beneficial in the immediate as well as in the long term, if it is beneficial for yourself as well as others. And if you follow these kind of thoughts and emotion, does it affect yourself and others in some other ways? So through a second kind of degree of contemplation, then we can begin to kind of exercise a sense of control over these thoughts and emotions.
거기 그 도보디 꿀은 넘버 타바질라와이나 소소들라 차마 차지라 벤나 도보디 기차 아이 벨로 좀 칠레게 보시고 제올라에 라윈 되다 야보라얀 네 소소르 니파다 소소 트렌드 차만 당이 되면 다오라 도보 가르치려는 지도 말아 소소르 네체드 칸데도다 소소 가서 신주지야 아니 도보 야보레서 그가 야볼라서데 마디 지도면 소소 신주지 오르면 그 가르라오체는 간서 제마도야리라 디 마이게야 도보 가시베 두자는 러이라 지지 그마자오 잡아줘 점마셔 담만라 간서 지지올란 디 디숄도이너스 파게들레 봉 소소레 중라야 라 스스디 지지 되면다 개변 가르도 펜도 가르도 또 참았다네 지고라 대나시 가라서 이게 지로기 텐스 참 맞는 디갈은 순주로 치네 아니 제와이나 그런 길로디야 주마 도보두자나시 좀 맞춰야라 펜도 요래 삼더라
So I would I will stick to this kind of analogy and try to explore this further to really understand how, before we begin to call our minds a bad friend, just simply think about this fact that when you use this analogy of calling your mind a bad friend, now think about an actual friend and don't call them good or bad in the first place, an actual friend. And now, if you have a friend and they come up with a lot of things that they want to do with you, suggestions, things that they want to do together with you, now, does it make sense to kind of follow everything that this friend suggests? It doesn't make sense. It is impossible to kind of follow through with every suggestion a friend makes, because you have to take into account your time, take into account what you can do or we cannot do, and so forth. This is the kind of management that we have in place in our interaction with a friend. So before we begin to call our mind a bad friend, if we understand this, then we need to be able to kind of exercise the same sense of management with regards to the thoughts and emotions that arises within our minds. Now, of course, it is indeed the case that we do have bad friends who always suggest things that will land us in trouble sooner or later. That it's better to kind of avoid from engaging in such an interaction in the first place. Yes.
대치지 아니 찌기다가 디 따라라야 디 코라 루센젤 강이 예라더라 아니 라신이가 셈바 장보 제에 이타 장보 가르쳐 다 수수 루센젤 강이 있는데 때나가 루이나 차로 데 강이나 다저 곰데야 많이 봐 햄바데 이나레 루지자고 이나라 디 탑시 제제 아니 다 셈발라 강이 라디가라 셈발라 남도 담을 테마 주원더라 수수 위치기 텐스 참마 제에 되네 맞이었지 생라 나도 담는다 샤마주야 아니 잠잠아서 셈바스 구역이지 대벽 보더니 로야 수수 미스나 럽자도 라니페나 준주 대벽 로나 빼보다 다때마이 베 줄루셔만나 대담나 유지래 봐 수수 대담은 따고 가장 고난 따는 수수라 로라 인주만 주시라 어디다 오늘 럽자다 야포 슈두선 근데로 로야 빼케시모다 봐 저도 남도도 뭐 까야치더라. 나가 진짜 아무데 텐다 아무데 지 산노 땅데나 아니 잠잠 아주 밀래디 같이 올라나 미 미틀레 괜찮으시라 단다라라 예. 라 이내 디마이 겐가도 대법은 대 차주대야 사람 뭐다는 셈벌 강이 직수다. 라 아니 소소 미스 가지 대야 하고 마데 마음 벌로 주니시기 때 자시시우딘. 라 된대기야 아주 셈벌 강이 직수다. 잠자네야 수수 도보 도문 냠들은 텐센데 아 콜레 딘데시는 가 딘데지 딘데 아주 딘데기 안나베 가는 셈벌 강이 레이다 다처럼 셈 비톨 강이 간데스 레이는 야 하고 메데 간다 강이 레이다 안데 마무지도 디 나로로 수수 차시 가리는 최대와이나 디디 수수 데즈파 가야기 탑시다 베키죠 라
So moving on, one of us shared that they struggle with physical health as well as some aspects of their mental health as well. Now, with regards to our physical health, it is important that we try to find a means to address our physical ailments, whether it is exercise, whether it is diet, whether it is a diagnosis or anything, that we should first kind of look for any means which can help us alleviate the physical suffering that we are going through. It is pointless to kind of suffer through it silently, because in this day and age we have all the facilities and all of these kind of health services are accessible to us. So as such, we need to do whatever we can to take care of our physical health. Now, with regards to our mental health, I think the manner in which we become unhappy and our mental health begins to suffer is, I think, more often than not, due to being overwhelmed by our own thoughts and our own emotions, what goes on in the mind. When we become overwhelmed and consumed by what goes on in our minds, then we begin to suffer mentally. And so as such, I think it is important to make the effort to read good books which can help us to kind of change our perspective in the manner in which we approach things, situations, and reframe our responses to situations, to things, and so forth. So, for example, from the Buddhist scriptures, I recommend a text such as Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or sometimes translated as Engaging the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Bodhicharya Avatara. If you kind of read this book, then it offers a lot on how to reframe our responses emotionally, mentally, and so forth. And then I'm sure that in this day and age, we have access to a lot of different books from many different traditions, many different fields as well. So look at a title which appeals to you, look at something that appeals to you, and try to read it and see how it can change your perspective on things. And with that being said, now I don't really understand at this point what exactly affects your mental health in this manner. But when we look generally, as human beings, our mental health begins to suffer because we've failed to take into account that the past is past indeed. We do not exercise any control over the past anymore. But the manner in which we kind of obsess over things that happened in the past, it's almost as if we have a sense of control over the past. And then similarly, we make plans for the future which is totally uncertain. And then we begin to kind of develop anxiety about the future. Now this is the two manner in which we become, our mental health begins to suffer without being mindfully present in the mindfully present in the now. And if we have such an attitude, it is important to accept that the past is past and that the future indeed is uncertain, and to make an effort to live mindfully in the present. And then also many in this day and age, many of our mental suffering comes from our interactions in the domain of our professional lives, in our interactions with others, because in this day and age, our interactions as well as our lives generally are led by a sense of competition with others, a sense of jealousy which springs from that sense of competition, that I have to be able to compete with others. And I think this really this really takes a toll on people's mental health. Las.
지는 간 잠자 생 시디 샤야디 카르나 산주로 갔다 와이나 가시기 dit다리도 칼라 네 산주 두자로야 지단게 담리가라가 야가요레 두어요라 오늘 야 두어니 지는 야가 마이케 내가 두자지기 가시지기 다시 라지 채원 들었다네 데네베도 거라 다 용사 말을 마생 레타로 치료도 단 담리가라 엔데 중은 쇼진 단에 야야 마보여라 라 페나가 사윤도 칠로로 제디가라 지질 로바치니 냐마이나 다 lumba친지 소소 데데데 셔라 체토마티스 제캅데 제캅 로바치야 근데 간데 지기도 라 그래서 삼마레 아니 지 나차 추네 아니 지게 로바치니 마보다 메가라이나레 더 삼마가도 쇼 니였다고다 두어 짠짠질라 지 타체 바도다 아니 지금만도 다 지금 들레도 짠짠다데나 안 쇼치도도 마통 안 되기다 semba친지로 차다 된다 용사말은 세슈차니로 스스로 강이로 됐다 직 누저지 통은 삼어들을 삼다 저는 삼어야 말아 야가요를 두어요래라 그 참쇼 연다요 아니 계시 직강이로 내가 두어지 태와이나야 당아도 남바지는데 그 레진데라 샤야지로 라 렌데레 삼티 sem바라시 흘르는 차요다 근데 용식이랬어요 다치나 레진데 케 말레나야 미 삼출레 담라요라 야가 삼여를 두어 삼여를 데데데 용식이래 삼에지기 그 로디가 샤토나 데스 그라시 그냥 차이다 라 디 가르치는 거 데데 좀 추야 거래요 말했삼 페 슈부지 파 생 까동지 안 대가라시 바길레네 둔다마르리 어디가 Tetsili gepa ji longo lo mashu ani tsagi chado ya deida. Unta tsu ende shepe kechama saresam.
So now another way in which our present lives and the manner in which we consume information takes a toll on our mental health is evident in the manner in which we consume news. And many people actually, their mental health suffer as a consequence of consuming too much news. And now we need to first understand that the news channels, the news platforms, they have an incentive to highlight the bad things that are happening because that grabs the attention of people. Now, if we let that inform our sense of reality or of what is really happening in the world, then this is not really healthy at all. We suffer a lot. Then our outlook towards the world itself becomes negative, and then we become disheartened because we are always consuming something, news about something bad that is happening. And then we become disheartened, our mental outlook towards the world becomes negative, and we always hear news about terrorist wars, something bad happening, and then we let this inform our sense of reality, our perspective on reality. And in the process, we ourselves become totally disturbed all the time. We become very negative people. So I will give you this example. Even when there is a news of a natural disaster striking, such as an earthquake, of course, the news highlights the fact that these are the number of casualty, these are the kind of effect it had. But then there's another side to this too, that in the face of this adversity, this natural disaster, there are brave human beings who come forth at such urgent times to give services, to give aid to people, to help people, to rescue people. So there is another side to it that we fail to take into account if we let ourselves kind of informed always by what is shown on the news. And so we need to kind of pay attention to the manner in which we consume information in this day and age too, because this can have a toll or effect on our mental health. And now, from a Buddhist perspective, it is the manner in which one comes to acceptance of reality or to acceptance of situations in our lives is kind of simple. We kind of attribute it to our karma that we have accumulated in a previous life. This is the karma coming into fruition, so there is no manner in which we can change it. We have to accept it. So this is the manner in which, from the Buddhist perspective, we come to acceptance. But I don't think many people can actually relate to such a way of coming into acceptance of things. So maybe we can just simply think about the fact that rather than having constricted way of thinking, a very narrow way of thinking, maybe we can open our minds we can kind of more, develop our minds to be more open in the sense that it is open to all possibilities. Because if we have a very narrow way of thinking, then we say that this can never happen, this should not ever happen. And then when such a thing indeed does happen, we are now in a very hard place to accept it. So rather than developing such a narrow view of things, being open to all things, all possibilities, is very important in order to cultivate our mental health.
Tene kore kalle lana ani semba zambura kandas chigwe me da sheji lagdo ti chranzal chida semba zambala ngone kecham perwa ara zmitna ra semba zamba meba inza ani kangi mambe tigora chida an kyanzala tiskara sibu chaya chide me semba zamba semba zambala ne kandero jidra sese kan sheji mere testis la da kandela chawor semba zamba.
So now one of us talked about how they want to find a means or tool to be more kind in their lives towards themselves as well as towards others. Now to just kind of intersperse our discussion with a sort of a break, I want to hear from you now. What exactly do you think is kindness? because it is indeed the case that many of our problems and suffering comes from not being able to be kind or from a lack of kindness. So what do you think is kindness? What do you think is, or what does it mean to be kind? Yes?
Yeah.
To give or share without expecting something in return.
Tene shen la chi te ra, ne lo dong che ra, su su la su chik ra yo sam ge re do den de chi kha me ne che de la.
Shiba.
Others? Yes.
To be selfless in giving materialistic or non-materialistic things.
Dene su su ge ne ta jin ze ge chi ge ra. Rang shi che me ne ra. Ani sang sing gi jin ba ton na ya rang sra ya, yang sang sing men be jin ba ton na ya, den de ji la ku yo re.
Jembar jira te dona ra.
Yes.
To help or rid of someone's suffering without having compulsion to do it of your own accord.
Tene mi ji la ni dungye le ra, ani thardab gi roba che je ra. Inji minji da khola che go re ne shin da gi kuma do me wa chin ra. Su su rang gi ra. Den de che ji la ku yo res.
Think about somebody else's well-being rather than narrowing down by your own selfish things which you are going through right now.
Yes. Tene su su gi ani ne dang la yo ra. Samlo bu su do ko ma dang ne sra. Ani mi shen gi den ja la ra da. Den de ko la ni pa sam shi che je ra. O te la ku yo res.
Dene shiba.
Kindness to our own minds when the mind is going too much everywhere and being kind to it in some way, or being kind to people who are maybe causing harm to us in maybe words, and maybe understanding their suffering and perhaps not retaliating in that way, but understanding where they're coming from and being kind to them.
Tene Quran gi dilagit samsang la di zamba su su gi sem je ra lo de la yang ani samsang che ko res ra
Susula semsa jim.
su gi sem je ra lo de la yang ani sang bo che ko res kan la na sem di na la nam do dam da mam bo chi cha yong go ros ani da mi shen la di zamba ani mi shen gi chu la ne che da chi na su ra pa la ne ne man chi ne ra pa la ani sang jo gi number 2 ya chi ra no te de chi la ko gi res. Yes.
I have a question. Sometimes it's conflicting. I'm trying to be kind to myself. I'm also trying to be kind to someone who is maybe verbally attacking me. So where do I draw the line? How much am I kind to myself and how much am I kind to other person? I also have to protect myself. So what do I do?
Tene Quran thiwa do jin isra samsam this go to buddha cha ge do sra su la ya this chambo la na da sangbo do la gra su la ya ani chi sangbo chambo ya che go do as ani na su la ani this sangbo chambo do chi du che kap thagarang la sra mi shen ji la ya semba sangbo che go do as semba sangbo che sa di ya su la chi ne cha da che gen je ra den do ji ke de zamba ani ta su la sangbo che go re ya na mi shen de la ani semsang che go re la ne chi go tu ye gi ne dang chi cha gi dos
Susula semba zambu chagula na.
su la ya semba sangbo che go ro as
네.
tina shi mi shen la ya semba sangbo che go ro as kap la di ni genda do cha gi dos da tu zi chi la cha gi dos shin da di gi su ne che do che yong de semba sangbo che la na ka bo ro as 저 발생 시간은
Shiba deshi massage zi ani digala sanutang ra chathungde. Ani yamade ani nga tega xiao ra.
So the rest of you who didn't share, maybe you can think about it over the cup of tea. Then we will pick up the discussion when we gather in half an hour.
추참마이 시바데 투지체스 소소 강사.
So thank you everyone for those who shared with us.